All right, so we are welcome back to the first session of the last unit. So gradually, we are getting to the point of this course. So the introduction to the agreement. This is what we are going to discuss in this particular session. Introduction to the agreement. Normally, these things they are kind of boring in a way. So please make sure you consider or you read more from the book. Okay. So we should be able to learn some of the elements that go into the introductory part of the collective bargaining agreement. Explain what you mean by effective date and end date in negotiated agreement. Explain how the general basis of a collective bargaining is presented. Identify and explain the objective and scope of a CB. Identify how interpretation of an agreement is what. So if you look at the effective date and then the end date, a collective bargaining should have effective date and then what end date upon which they want to what actually embark on. So when the document becomes operational, so we should be able to know that the collective bargaining agreement is going to be full or is going to be in use, or we are going to operationalize it, or we are going to actually put into effect in this particular date. That's the effective date, and probably should last for this frame or this timeline. This is the end date. So let's say we are going to use the agreement for 5 years, or the agreement for let's say 6 years. That's the end date. So however, as they define the beginning and the end date, some documents have the effective date at the beginning and end date at the end. So that is it. Now with the duration, we are for the presentation one. We talked about the duration. So the duration of this agreement shall be for a period of 2 years with effect from 1st January. So this one is from 2018. At any time after 2022 month from the effective date of this agreement, either party may give 1 calendar month notice in writing expressing its wish for this agreement to be reviewed or expressing its intention that the agreement shall continue in force till a new agreement is signed. Then any time in the 11th month from the effective date of this agreement, put only once during the 2 years or the 2 year period. Either party may give 1 month notice to the other in writing for the salaries to be reviewed. Now the presentation talks about the duration and then the effective date. So the first one, the agreement shall be for a term of 3 years with effective or the effect from 1st January 2015, except for the rate of pay schedule. So that is then if after the expiration of the agreement or new agreement shall have been concluded, the provisions herein shall continue to apply until a new agreement is negotiated, or until the agreement is terminated in the terms of Article 8.03. And the agreement shall be terminated by either party in accordance with the labor law. And the general basis of the agreement, so the objective and the scope. So this item of the document highlights what an agreement intends to achieve, and that is what covers. Normally, junior staff join the union and therefore negotiated for. For instance, the scope of presentation one is employees below the rank of plant maintenance mechanician, meaning the PMTs are senior staff and then the company being a manufacturing or chemical one. So the presentation one talks about the objects, and that's the parties to this agreement, bearing the common responsibility for the successful operation of the companies and all that. Then the scope, which talks about the agreement shall apply to employees below the rank of the plant maintenance mechanician and all that. Then presentation two talks about the scope of the agreement. Then the interpretation of the agreement, which has the presentation one and two. So the presentation one talks about the interpretation of the agreement. If the interpretation of any part of the agreement is disputed and agreement cannot be reached by both parties in terms of what the appropriate procedure set out in agreement, the terms in dispute shall therefore be dealt with in accordance with the labor law. Then as well as the interpretation too. If the interpretation of any part of this agreement is in dispute and the standing jointly negotiated committee cannot resolve it, then it is a responsibility that the item shall be treated in accordance with the appropriate section of the constitution or the laws, the labor laws of the land. So that one will be applied doing that.